Now, okay, I am really hoping to get you guys out of here in 45 minutes. Really hoping to get you out of here in 45 minutes. So thank God for Netflix and streaming services because you can just watch it later. So tonight we got to cover a lot of ground, okay? It has been 8 months since the pandemic started. It's been not quite that long since our time together was, abruptly ended unceremoniously, specifically without a real celebration. And I feel really bad about that. I'm super sad that you guys didn't get that in before we had to call it. And so these 2 sessions are to help you and your families get the most out of the celebration that we will have in a couple of weeks as possible. Now, just a caveat before we begin. Every year, confirmation evolves a little bit, and that was definitely the case again this year. My thinking for how to do this stuff last spring definitely evolved over the summer. And so the kids this fall have gotten way more on the Enneagram and some more dialed in thoughts. On the other side, you got way more Bible and other stuff. Today, I'm going to do my best to bring the 2 of you together so that here on November 14th or 15th or 18th or whenever you guys choose to do this celebration, it connects and is meaningful. And not only that, but as promised last spring, that the things that we cover in our time together are things that can really change your life in the future. All right. I want to give you some tools that you can use to literally change your life. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to share a screen real quick. And I apologize at the outset. It's like the witching hour for my 2 kids. This is when they beat each other up the most. And so if I have a crying 4-year-old that bursts through the door, I'm so sorry. All right. I want to read to you guys 4 journeys, 4 stories. And I want you to see if they resonate to your story at all. So journey number 1. I've got a young lady in one of my sessions this fall who keeps getting into fights with her dad over and over again. In the midst of those fights, she feels ridiculed, embarrassed, and after those fights, she feels unfocused and indifferent. She doesn't want to feel that way anymore. She doesn't want to keep having those fights. She needs to go on a journey. Journey number 2. We've got a very bright young man who the night before his days at school, he's on the hybrid model, can't go to sleep. And he can't go to sleep until he is absolutely sure that he has everything he needs to know or could ever possibly know down. He has to know it before he can go to school in the morning. And so sometimes he stays up half the night trying to get his head around it so that he isn't caught off guard. He feels overwhelmed and isolated. He doesn't want to feel that way, and he wants to get more sleep. He needs to go on a journey. Journey number 3, we've got a talented young woman who, after years of competing at a high level in sports, decided to walk away. She decided she didn't want to fight with her parents anymore. She didn't want to be mad at her coaches anymore. She didn't want to be alone among the team anymore. But now she's feeling insignificant. She's feeling inferior. She's feeling left out. She's feeling rejected. She doesn't want to feel that way anymore. She needs to go on a journey. And journey number 4. I've got a young man in another section this fall who on Friday nights can't calm down. He has to be up late every single night, either talking with friends while trying to finish homework or while trying to manage sports. He knows he's tired. His parents have told him that he needs to get some rest so that he can do his work and perform well at his baseball games the next day, but he can't. He has nervous energy that won't quit. He feels worried, but at the same time, energetic. He doesn't want to have these dueling feelings anymore. He wants to get his work done. He wants to sleep well for once, and he wants to stop fighting with his parents about how he spends his time. He needs to go on a journey. I have dozens more stories that I could share with you guys that would illustrate the reality that sometimes we feel stuck, that sometimes we are in an emotional, spiritual, and physical place we don't want to be in, that we want to make movement to something more healthy and free than what we have. And that is what this journey our time together, this project, including concluding with the celebration we'll have in a few weeks, is for. And so if this is something that is important to you or to the people you love, listen close, pay attention, and be sure to ask some questions along the way. So as best as you are able, stay off your phone. As best as you are able, turn the TV off, just be on the camera. As best as you are able, pay attention, and stay out of the chat here on Zoom, okay? So picking up last spring, the Enneagram journey. Remember that? Everybody nodding? Fabulous. Last spring, we talked about some key tools that God gives us to understand and express our faith. We talked about the Bible, the church community, baptism, communion, confession and forgiveness, and prayer, to name a few. And there are many more, but these are the core tools that most Christians use, and they are the core tools your parents you promised to use in your life as they raised you as a part of God's family. To this list last spring, we added the Enneagram. Now, if you haven't taken it, or if you have forgotten your results or misplaced them somehow, then you need to follow this link. Go get it, copy and paste it, or just find it, go take it again. Do it right now. You can't do the journey if you don't do this test. You can't, right? So make sure that you know it. It's going to shoot you an email that has results that it explains in detail to you. You will need those in order to do this journey exercise, all right? Now, the Enneagram is a personality inventory. It is a personality inventory that reveals to you what you believe about the world and your place in it, that is always operating often below the surface, in your subconscious, below your emotions, behind your actions in various situations. This belief about the world is called your childhood message. Here are the childhood messages for each type. For you type 1s, your childhood message is that it's not okay to make mistakes. Type 2, it's not okay to have your own needs. Type 3, it's not okay to have your own feelings and identity. Type 4, it's not okay to be too functional or too happy. Type 5, it's not okay to be comfortable in the world. Type 6, it's not okay to trust yourself. Type 7, it's not okay to depend on anyone for anything. Type 8, it's not okay to be vulnerable or to trust anyone. And type 9, it is not okay to assert yourself. So as you grow into this childhood message, mostly unaware that you have one and without really questioning it, the Enneagram shows us that it typically works out in what the Enneagram describes as core motivations. Now, there is a core fear, a core desire, a core weakness. Your core fear is what you're always avoiding and trying to prevent from happening. Now, for those of you, for the 3s in the room, Chase, wherever you're at, you are often trying to avoid being seen as incompetent, incapable, or not successful. And so that being perceived in that way drives you nuts. For those of you that are 6s, you are constantly trying to avoid being put into situations that make you feel unsafe or insecure. Type 5s, you're often trying to avoid being in social situations or in situations that may or may not make you look like you do not have the right answers or the right way to be or the right social skills for that moment. 7s, your core fear is that you might do something that makes the people that you hope care about you deeply leave and not take care of you. We all have a core fear. We also have a core desire. A core desire is what you're always striving for, believing that it's going to completely fulfill you. Back to the 3s, you're constantly pursuing success. 6s, you're constantly pursuing security. 4s, you're constantly pursuing emotional depth. 5s, you're constantly pursuing safety in your head. 8s, you're constantly pursuing aggressive conflict and justice, always, often to the detriment of your relationships. The problem is, it is always one step ahead, and you can't catch it. We also have a core weakness. Your core weakness is the issue you're always wrestling with, which will remain a struggle forever. Each of the types has a specific core weakness. And in that email that your results came in, all of these core motivations are listed. It's different for each type, all right? So that core weakness is the issue you're always wrestling with. These core motivations pull you away from what you really need to hear to become healthy, which is your core longing. When we're healthy, we're in alignment, we're in touch with our core longing, okay? Your core longing is the message your heart longs to receive. It is that thing that stops the race. It is that truth that stops the worry. It's the truth that stops the deception. It's the truth that stops the anger. It's the truth that stops the anxiety. It's the truth that lets you be comfortable being who you are as a child of God, embodied as who you are, okay? That is the truth that we need to hear. It's the message you're longing to hear. Another word that Christians use for that, well, here it is for each type. Type 1, you want to hear that you're good. 2, that you're wanted and loved. 3, you are loved for simply being you. 4, you're seen and loved for exactly who you are, special and unique. 5, your needs are not a problem. 6, you are safe and secure. 7, you will be taken care of. 8, you will not be betrayed. And 9, your presence matters just as much as all the other presences in a room or social situation that you find yourself in. Now, the gospel is just another word that we give in Christian circles to that reality when you embrace it, what your heart longs to hear that frees you from your wounding childhood message. Jesus said that he has come so that people who are oppressed might be free, so that the blind might see, and that the captives would be set free to live life abundantly, okay? Now, in the results that you receive from taking your test, you have all of those things. And if you want more depth in those things, just as you are getting your head back into this, Google it. Go into Instagram. My Enneagram Coach is on Instagram, and there's some other ones, Any Thought, that you can check out. Now, it will take some time and experience for you to recognize and become aware of these core motivations as they work out in your feelings and actions. The reason that is true is because most people don't take time to reflect. How many of you have a journal? The minority, for sure. Most people assume that the reason they do things is the reason they do things. They never stop to question, did I do that for the reason that I thought I was doing it for? Or that was weird that I reacted in that way. Why did I react in that way, right? It's going to take some time for you to be able to spot those things. Additionally, it's going to take practice for you to spot the moments where you are living in sync with your core longing, but with practice, they will become quite clear. You're going to be doing a thing or feeling an emotion, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I am totally connected to blah, fear, desire, weakness, whatever. To help you get there faster, we have a list of what are called Enneagram releases and affirmations. This list, which isn't totally exhaustive, describes what it looks and feels like when we are really caught up either in that childhood message or in core motivations. As you make your way through your list, which I hope that you did since I sent that to you here this past week, it is important to have your feeling wheel. Remember that colorful wheel with all the emotions on it? Nearby you, so that you can note how these statements make you feel, because checking our feelings is often a way to find the moments that trigger them. I said that sing-songy for a reason, so that it sticks in your head. Using the wheel is important so that you can check your feelings, because it's often a way to find the moments to trigger them. Also, included in that list are affirmations. They just describe what life is like when you are living in line with your core longing, the gospel for your type. In our time together, here's the thing. In our time together, we understand these two buckets of statements as the beginning and the end of your journey. We understand these two buckets to describe the beginning and the end of the journey God is taking you on, all right? It isn't a journey that you ever fully complete. but you can move farther from where you first start if you try. Every single year for the last 16 years that I have worked with students, I have heard some version of, how do I stop feeling X? Or how do I start feeling Y? How does God help me do blah, 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 right? This is how it happens, all right? It is possible. Now, how does this work with the Enneagram connect with being a Christian? All right, there's that feeling wheel. There's your journey. Your journey is the ground you cover between the world described by your releases and your affirmations. I'm going to send you guys this PowerPoint, so don't wig out too much if you don't catch it all. And let me just check up here in the chat really quick. Right. So many of the people around the world who love the Enneagram are also Christian. And so how do they connect the two? What are the tools they use? Well, tool number one is the Bible. They understand that the big story of the Bible, aka the big story of what God is up to, our faith, is this. God is taking things from formless to formed. In other words, you could say God is taking all things on a journey. That work includes all the stuff around us as well as us. The Bible is full of stories about that. And it is full of two types of content that help us to understand that journey out there and in us. There's two kinds of content in the Bible. There are testimonies and there's wisdom. Testimonies, which are simply stories of this stuff happening in the lives of people and people groups. The Bible is just chock full. And that's when people get lost in the names, dates, places, situations, events, and all that kind of stuff. The Bible is full of testimony, stories of things going from screwed up to great, or from great to screwed up. And it's just over and over and over and over and over again over the course of the 3,500 years of time the Bible covers, okay? The other form of content that you find in the Bible is wisdom. Wisdom is just practical advice and truth about how to approach your journey. So a lot of the people, I mean, have you ever found Christians in your life who have a verse for everything? And it's like, golly, where did you find, why did you know it? Like, and they just like rattle them off out of nowhere. These are people who have identified the problem in their life and have also identified wisdom in the Bible and have been like, oh, those two talk to each other. And then they have memorized it, right? And so there's obviously a lot of content in there. There's lots of testimonies and lots of wisdom, but the problem is most people don't really know what to look for because they don't really know what is happening in them, because they haven't used some kind of personality inventory. It's sort of like walking into a grocery store without a shopping list. Have you ever walked into a grocery store hungry? It's the worst feeling in the world. It's just enormous, and you don't even know where to start. You just start putting things in your cart. And that, I think, is how most Christians approach the Bible, right? That is why the Enneagram is such a powerful tool, because it gives you a list. Enneagram is such a powerful tool because it gives you a list. The Enneagram points you to the testimonies and wisdom that help your type accomplish its journey. That is a money line, right? That is a, how does the Bible connect with the Enneagram? How does the Enneagram connect with the Bible? How does my type connect to the Bible thing, okay? The Enneagram gives you your list. It points you in the direction of the testimonies and the wisdom that connect to the work you have to do. Now, in the same way that your list is going to get you to the aisle that you're looking for, you will still have to walk down the aisle, right? Just like anything. Allie, you're going to have to twirl a baton. Facts, if you want to get better, right? And it helps you define your subplot in God's big story. Now, so how do you effectively use the Bible? So even though the Enneagram helps you to narrow down your search, you're still only standing at the end of a big, long grocery aisle, and you've got to do the work. And this is how you use the Bible. And I'm sorry if this is like the dumbest, simplest, most ridiculous advice someone has ever given you in your time on this earth, but it is what works, okay? And that's how it is sometimes. Getting the most out of the Bible. You're going to need to read it. And for those of you like me, like anymore at the end of the day, I can't stand to look at words on a page. So what do? I go to Spotify, I go to iTunes, I go to YouTube, and I type in blah, 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 book in the Bible, and then I listen. I listen to it. I listen to it while I run. I listen to it while I cycle. I listen to it while I cook. I listen to it while I clean. I listen to it while I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And that way, I begin to hear over time those testimonies that maybe don't connect to me. But I also hear those testimonies that do. And I also begin to hear that wisdom that maybe doesn't connect to me, but I also begin to hear that wisdom that does. And over time, friends, I am more than twice your age. I've had lots of time to soak it in. And so if you're like, none of this crap makes any sense to me, this will never work. Believe me, the first step on any journey is taking a step, okay? You can't get anywhere unless you start walking. That is how this works. Number 2, memorize it. You know, one of the things that I have learned over and over and over again in life is that the things that I commit to memory are the things that change my life. A lot of the reason a lot of people don't get a lot out of the Bible is because they don't. And as a result, it doesn't have an impact on the way that they think, the way that they feel, the things that they do, right? So read it or memorize it. The next tool that God has given us is the church. Now, the church is simply all the people that are on a journey with us. They're all the other people that are moving from formlessness to form, that are moving from stuck to unstuck, that are moving from their releases to their affirmations, that are moving from unhealth, their childhood message, to their core longing in some way, shape, or form, okay? Here's the thing, though. Most people don't even know they're on a journey at all. I find that those are the people that have the least deep connection to whatever it is we do at church. Church doesn't make sense when you're not on this journey. It's just weird, right? It's when you start to actively engage with this journey that you're on that, like, all of a sudden things start to click, right? You start to see it all over the place. So there's 3 ways to get in touch with the church. There's the past church. There is 2,000 years of testimonies outside of the Bible about people that have gone on this journey before you. Our tradition, started by Martin Luther, his story is absolutely incredible if you're a 1 or a 7 or a 5. It's an absolutely incredible testimony to follow if you're one of those types, because his journey sounds a lot like your journey. There's the present church. I saw a whole bunch of you this week at Stu Min getting connected to your small groups again. I can't tell you enough how important that is, because by and large, most of the other groups that we are a part of out in the world, there's obviously exceptions, do not care about your momentum or progress in this journey. They want to get value from you and then move on. We want to add value to you so you can move on. All right? Get in touch with the present church. And then there's the future church. Some of you guys are already involved leading groups. Some of you have already been part of our camps. Some of you have already been engaged in some of the other stuff. A lot of you were, I think you were cats this week, yesterday at the Boo Bash. Fun fact, guys, you guys served somewhere between 450 and 500 people yesterday. That's insane. We accomplished more impact yesterday in 2 hours than we do in an entire week of Vacation Bible School. That is nuts. Okay, so there you go. You're impacting the future church. So how to learn about it, how to use the church, learn, Google it, friends, library, church baptismal records in your family. And number 2, get involved, get into a small group and serve. All right, tool number 3, I should say. Baptism. When the community invites you along in the journey. So long ago, people carried you little nuggets to a baptismal font, maybe a Prince of Peace or another church. And they gathered there with some sponsors and a pastor and a congregation, and they made some promises to raise you as a part of this community that's on a journey from unhealth to health. When we gather in a few weeks for this celebration, we will be gathering for what is essentially an affirmation of baptism service. Affirmation simply means to say yes to something. And so it is your opportunity to say, yes, I want to do this journey. I don't want to stay stuck. I want to make progress in my life. I want to grow from here. I don't want this to be the end. And I want to help you all grow too. So how to use it? Martin Luther, the guy after which our tradition is named, had a fantastic practice that I think can dent your life. Literally, it's brain science. Every day before he got out of bed, made the sign of the cross on his forehead and said, I am a child of God. I've been sealed by the Holy Spirit and marked to the cross of Christ forever. And doing that, literally, this is brain science happening here. It changed the way that his neurons wired together. And as a result, changed him. Martin Luther was a one. He felt deeply that he was flawed, that he was damaged goods. Reminding yourself that you are a child of God is to remind yourself that you are not damaged goods, but in fact that you are called by the creator of the universe, beloved, right? I think all of us can hear that message more often. Now, tool number 4, communion. Communion is simply a physical reminder of God's forgiveness and provision along the way in this journey. Communion, like the other things, makes no sense unless you're on the journey. It doesn't. It's just a weird tasting wafer and wine that's been literally sitting in a giant container in a closet for who the hell knows how long. Like, I don't even know if it's safe. Communion out of the context of this journey doesn't make sense, because communion is meant to remind people of the same journey that Israel took from slavery in Egypt to freedom in the Promised Land. And so it's to remind us from the journey that we take from slavery in our emotions and our type and our childhood message to freedom in our core longing. And it's a physical reminder of that, okay? And what we really need to hear are those words from the Lord's Prayer. Give us our daily bread, which is to say, give us the strength we need to keep on going in our journey. So how to use it? Celebrate it. Fun fact, you do not need a pastor for communion. You don't. You do not need a pastor for that. I'm not saying go pop bottles. What I am saying is use something as a physical reminder that God is with you along the way in this journey, right? It's in the same way that we use rings to remind us of promises, or bracelets, or whatever the heck you guys give people you like these days. I don't know. I wasn't giving people rings. Now, tool 5, confession and forgiveness. Confession and forgiveness is simply a form of prayer we do in community to ask God to take what keeps us stuck and to help us connect to the gospel. Now, in church services, it's often like this call and response thing, where the pastor's like, oftentimes we're feeling stuck and blah, 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 blah. God, receive our confession. And then the pastor will stop. And this is awkward 30-second pause. I always try to make it a minute to make people extra uncomfortable. But then we say, God, thank you so much for forgiveness. What all of that is about is an opportunity for you to say, anger keeps me stuck. I don't want to stay stuck. Take my anger. Shame keeps me stuck. I don't want to stay stuck. Take my shame. Anxiety keeps me stuck. I don't want to stay stuck. Take my anxiety. And give me something different. Whatever it is, God, give me that. What we're asking for is forgiveness. Forgiveness in the Bible is just a code word for freedom, right? Like being unencumbered, being unlabored by these negative emotions and actions that we keep on repeating in our lives. And so how to use it? Your small groups. A lot of the time, I don't know if you've got Catholic friends who still, at all are connected to the habit of confession and forgiveness with a priest. Like, that seems weird, which I understand. But I think that by having a small group, and many of you do, where you can say, guys or gals, this is how I'm struggling this week. Simply by voicing those things, you take power from them. It's when we keep those things in, they get power over us. And they gain weight, friends. They gain weight over time. And so it's important that we have a regular habit where we share what is going on in our lives with people that know and care about us, so that in exchange for those things, they can give you acceptance, love, freedom that you need. If you don't have a small group, and you know what, for most of your life, you may not, journal. Man, I cannot recommend enough a practice of journaling if you want to grow. If you want to grow. All right. Putting it all together. All right, you guys. So we're about to get into what I think is maybe the most practical, tangible, graphic way of describing what it is we're doing. All right. And so if you are a picture drawer, draw this down so it helps you to learn it. So get a piece of paper or something. This is important. All right. This is the money stuff. But before we do that, is there anything that you have a question about so far? That's a lot of content. I apologize for that. Anything you're wondering about? All right, here we go. This is the money stuff. All right. So back to the 4 stories I shared earlier. How are these 4 young people going to get out of, oh, you got someone? No? All right, accidental on me. How are they going to get unstuck? How are you going to get unstuck? This is how it works. Step 1, get aware of common emotions and noticeable behaviors. Get aware of common emotions and noticeable behaviors. So you can kind of see I've got a little bit of a Mad Lib going on the bottom of the screen there. Draw that out on your paper if you have a big piece of paper. And just note that it ends in C, okay? So getting aware of your common emotions and noticeable behaviors. You'll see making a list of these is going to give you the one part of a loop. And so how you do this is go back through your day, your afternoon, your week, a month, a year, and think about your emotions that you often felt. Did you feel anxious? Did you feel angry? Did you feel joyful? Did you feel curious? Make a list. Rank them. Like perceived, like what were the most like, golly, I felt that all the time. Like, yes, looking back on this season, joy was my thing, okay? Now, think about behaviors. Did you find yourself playing just a stupid amount of video games in the past period of time? Did you find yourself always napping, sleeping, just lots of naps? Did you find yourself getting into fights a lot? Did you find yourself having lots of great laugh-filled conversations with people you know? Make a list. Make a list and rank them. What you felt the most of, what you felt the least of, what was the most vibrant and emotional and connected. Make a list. So that's step 1. Step 2. Do these behaviors sound more like me in health or in unhealth? Am I describing in this list of emotions and behaviors and actions a picture of my type living into their childhood message, core desires, core fear, core weakness? Or am I describing here someone who's living into their core longing? Health, right? compare. All right? As you spend more time getting to know yourself, you're gonna be able to spot when you are like really aligned with your core longing, or when you are out of alignment really bad with your childhood message. I don't know if you guys remember that cylinder picture that I showed you last spring. It kind of showed you like vertical height. When you're at the top, you're in line. When you're at the bottom, you're not. You are unhealthy. You are flaming, right? So step 2 is to figure out whether or not you are in health or unhealth. That is going to give you perspective on what follows. Step 3, determine the people, the places, the situations, and the times that are connected to these emotions and behaviors. Another word for that, let me make sure I get it over here. Triggers. So people. Oftentimes, over in Twinville over here, we behave certain ways. We feel certain ways when we're around our twins, or around our sibling, or around certain people, our parents, teachers, coaches. They have an effect on us. The people we want to date, the people that have dumped us, whatever. Places trigger us. Sometimes when people walk into school, they just get a flood of whatever emotion. Sometimes when people walk in the door at their house, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a kind of way. Situations. The pandemic. Like, if you pay attention to a moment in time in history, it is the past 8 months. They have been screwed up, and they have made a lot of people go to unhealth. A lot of people have gone to the childhood message. So situations often change us. And times. So evening, mid-afternoon, morning, early for something, late for something. How many of you absolutely detest being late? I hate it. And I turn into the worst version of me when my family makes me late. I'm the worst dad ever. Chase was here before everyone. He gets the 3 award. He's a type 3, just like I am, because of course he would. All right, so step 3, we're identifying our triggers. Step 4, determine the beliefs that impact your emotions and behaviors. Challenge these beliefs or embrace them. The Bible, remembering your baptism, communion, prayer, and the church, and the bajillion things Christians do when they get together that we didn't mention are all tools to change your beliefs. That's what they are. They are, when you look at them from a brain science perspective, like what happens in your brain when you engage in these things in a certain kind of a way, they are tools to change your mind. Okay? They are also tools to cement things in your mind. Sometimes you might find, hey, I'm healthy. That's good. Identify that stuff. Now, also here in this B, another window into that are your release and affirmation statements. When you're thinking about your release statements, they are beliefs about the world if you read them, right? And those beliefs impact your emotions and your actions. And so let me grab some of those right now. Let me open some of those. Oh, wait, here we go. Okay, so let me read it for the 7s. I have a lot of 7s in here. 7s. For example, release statements for a 7. I now release all reckless and destructive impulses. I now release feeling that I will be overwhelmed by anxiety. I now release all compulsions and addictions. I now release burning myself out by trying to satisfy all of my desires. I now release running away from the consequences of my actions. I now release insulting or abusing others to vent my frustration. I now release allowing my insecurities to drive me into dangerous situations and behavior. I now release sacrificing my health and happiness for instant gratification. I now release being demanding and impatient with others. I now release fearing that there will not be enough of me. These statements describe this. The same way, the affirmation statements can describe this. And when we begin to have a sense of when those things are happening, when a trigger happens, when your dad walks into the door looking like he's got something to say to you, you can already know that you probably have a preloaded belief about how that's going to go, and you can edit it. You can question it. You can challenge it. You can swap it for something else. And in doing that, you have a chance to change your emotions and actions and behaviors, the C. The word for this, the name for this type of work is cognitive behavioral therapy. If you want to know a lot of what Christianity is, it's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, step 5, repeat. Repeat the process as much as possible. Constantly check in with yourself. Am I living in line with my childhood message? Am I living in line with my core longing? How am I doing? It's going to set the altitude for this whole process. It's going to determine whether or not this process happens in the mud or if this process happens in a healthy place. And then spot emotions in your actions, connect them to triggers, and edit the beliefs that you have about yourself and the world you're in with the tools that I've described. Do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and it will change you. Those 4 stories that we talked about earlier don't have to always go that way. By engaging in this process, this loop, you can literally change your brain. You can change your emotions. You can change your behaviors, right? So that, friends, is the practical application for the stuff that we have been doing. So the reason why for saying yes to your baptism, affirming your baptism here in a few weeks, the reason why to saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this community, want to use this book of testimonies and wisdom. I want to continue to pray. I want to continue to gather with people in church. I want to continue to go to my small group. I want to continue to do those things, is because those are all tools for changing that belief that can change the way that you feel and the way that you behave. It can move you from being stuck to unstuck, from the beginning of your journey to where you're headed. And in as much as you don't want to stay stuck, this is how you do it. All right. Your journey stories will be a description of that. And so I gave you guys kind of a shorthand version of mine. And what I did was this. So if you have that packet nearby you, I think my 8-year-old just body slammed my 4-year-old into the floor upstairs. So if you hear him crying, that's why. So as a type 3 in the Enneagram, my childhood message is that it isn't okay for me to have my own identity and feelings. When I believe that, my core motivations kick in and I start trying to figure out what people want from me. I try to determine what success means for the group I'm part of so that I can stay connected. I don't want to be rejected. In my family, that's my core fear, is rejection. In my family, that means to be good at school. That's how you stay in. In my work today, it means to be quick and strategic. I do everything I can sometimes to fit those descriptions of success so that the group won't reject me. When I get fixated on these core desires, these core motivations, I start to see those release statements for type 3. So statements like fearing I'm inadequate, feeling I must conceal, closing down, betraying my integrity. Specific examples in my life. And so as you think about spotting your emotions and actions, that's where those would go. And then there's the big but of the gospel, right? The but of the gospel. When I begin to believe my core longing, the gospel for my type, that I am loved for simply being me, I start to embrace the affirmations of my type. Let me share this. And let me make this little. All right. But when I start to believe my core longing, so this is the interesting part of your stories, right? It's when you start to believe what's true about you. I start to embrace my affirmations. Statements like, I have value, that I'm centered and emotionally available, caring and have a good heart. And that's going to be different depending on your type. So basically, you're kind of filling these things in with what comes with all the content I've given you, plus your own stories, okay? Specific examples of this in my life are that there are times when I'm honest with my limitations with my team, and they embrace me because they are limited too. And we're all in this together. Additionally, there's times when the group doesn't grow and we get negative feedback. But these become the times when we learn the most and can do better next time. Embracing that, regardless of the circumstances, that I am valued and loved helps me to trust my team and others, which leads to positive relationships. In order to continue to believe the gospel, my core longing to get closer to it, I use the tools that God has given me that I've described to you guys today. The Bible, church, baptism, communion, confession, prayer. What you guys might say is, you might use your family. That's a gift that God has given you. They're part of the church. You might use your small group. That's a gift that God has given you, a tool that God has given you. They're part of the church. You might have a daily reading plan on YouVersion or something like that. That's a tool that God has given you in the Bible, or Spotify, or YouTube, or iTunes, or something. And so you'll list out how you want to use those things to change that belief in your head over time. And your parents are going to be the ones that hear this story. And this is the impact it's going to have on them. Number one, and this is coming as a parent. They're going to say to themselves, oh my God, I had no idea. Why didn't they ever tell me this? It's going to be this moment where they know you deeper and better than they have before. Your relationship will change. That's the magic of doing this kind of stuff. And they're going to be able to, as you describe what your life is like when you're stuck in your core motivations and your releases, they're going to be like, they're going to connect the dots. Some will be faster, some will be slower at this than others. They're going to start to connect the dots. Like, I've seen this, I've heard this, I've watched this, I participate in this. Sometimes they are the trigger, right? And then you're going to give them the but I want to change. Your parents, for as much as they love you, most of them don't know what change looks like for you, or even what health looks like for you. They know what health looks like for them. And then they project it on you. And then they use the tools that work for them on you. That's great if you're the same. Most of you are not, okay? And you're going to describe, this is the version of me that I want to be. You're going to look at those affirmation statements and describe how those things look in your life, right? And then when you talk about the tools, yeah, some of those things are just like tools that you want to use, but what I hope you do, because your parents are going to be your first and best friends for the rest of your life, is invite them in and describe for them what actually helps, or describe for them what doesn't. What are messages you want to hear compared to messages you don't want to hear, all right? And the total impact of that is going to be a lot of information for them. Their role from then on is to walk alongside of you, all right? And what they will do in that moment is they're going to pray for you. They're going to thank God for who you are. They're going to thank God for who you're becoming. And they're going to commit to walking alongside of you in the way that you want to be walked alongside of in your journey. That is where we are going. that is what that celebration is going to be about. And next week, what I want you guys to have ready for me so we can talk through some examples are at the very least outlines of your journeys. Okay? Because I want to help you guys write them. I want other people to hear some that are in process so that others can write them better. And then also, I need to pick a few of you for weekend worship. We will need people for on-site, so we're going back on-site on the 1st of November. No, 22nd, sorry. 22nd of November, and some for recording in the studio. So be thinking about if that's you. Holy Lord, this is the 3rd session of confirmation I've taught today. Are there any questions that you guys have about logistics, about who needs to be at this celebration, about, I'll send your families more information about that, but is there anything that I can help you with? Think about the people who missed tonight. What stuff do you think they might need to know? You guys are all nearly upperclassmen. If you have a question, what is it? Anything you're wondering? Was this helpful? Do you feel further along now than 40, 50, 55 minutes ago? Yes? You have enough information to be dangerous and to write something for me? Kendrick? Good. Kenny, you good? All right. If anything comes up, be sure to reach out. Okay, you've got my contact information. Thank you so much for being here tonight, making time, and I will see you guys same bat time, same bat channel next Sunday night.
Thank you.
Later.